Hi, my name is Jay Oza. I help people give good to great performance when they're speaking, whether it's one on one, in a small group, or in front of a large audience. I want to talk about something called the zone of success. I teach this to my students or the people that I'm coaching because a lot of them don't quite understand what this is. And it's not that difficult, but nobody's ever taught this to them. And when it comes to speaking, you got to make sure you're in the right zone, right from the beginning till the end. And it may not be possible, but you have to know whether you're in the right zone. In speaking, the two zones are interesting versus boring. We human beings always tend to think in binary. Either you're good or you're bad. Either you're interesting or you're boring. Before I go into this in more detail, let me kind of step back and give you some examples of how we think of these zones in personal life, when it comes to job interviews, and then I'll go into speech. In personal life, which if you're married or if you're already attached, when you, let's say, I'm going to take a male perspective, when you meet a woman, they either put you in one of two zones very quickly. They're either going to put you in a friend zone or they're going to put you in a potential romance zone. Most guys hate getting lumped into the friend zone. Once they know they get into the friend zone, it's almost like kiss of death. They know that they're not going to have any chance at that woman they like because she's already put you in the friend zone. And once you get into that zone, it is really hard to get into the other zone that you want. At that point, you have to decide it's over, move on. That's it. So, that I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. The other things you can relate to is when it comes to job interview. And recently, I was coaching a person who is highly qualified. He's an author. He has PhD, but he wants to be thought of as a business leader, not as a technical leader. So I helped him craft his resume, and he's suddenly getting attention from people because of his business acumen. And I spoke to him last week. He has an interview that's coming up, and I said, "Listen, you have to be very careful. There are two zones for you here. One is the biz zone, the business zone, and the other one is the techie zone. You keep getting lumped into the techie zone. Now that we have crafted your resume, you should be remaining in the business zone. But when the question gets asked, because there's a lot of technical information that's still in his resume that he has to show because he has a PhD, has authored a technical book, that the tendency will be to bring him into the tech zone quickly." I said, "No, you got to remain in the business zone. If you remain in the business zone, you're getting closer to what I call it the business nirvana, the kind of job you want, and be viewed as a thought leader." I said, immediately, if the question starts getting into the technical, you got to stop quickly and try to get back into the business zone. And if you can't, then end the interview because it's too late. It's over. I said, if you keep getting deeper and deeper into technical, then you're going to get into what I called it to him, nerdwana. And I said, nerdwana is fine if that's what you want to do, but that's not what he wants to do. So I said, listen, you got to make sure you remain in the business zone. As soon as you get out of the business zone, you are getting into something that you're not going to be happy with. Okay, so we covered personal, social situation, job interview. Now let's get into the speech. So in speech, as I said, there is the boring zone and an interesting zone. You want to be in the interesting zone. But how do you know whether you are in that zone? How do you know? I'm speaking. I hope I'm in the interesting zone, but I may not be. I could be suddenly lumped into the boring zone, or you may not even have gotten this far. Some of the techniques you use is you have to ask a question and then look at the reaction. You can say, "So what do you think of this? Does this make sense? Is this something you've seen before?" Can this be used? Is this something you can, is this understandable? Does this, you got to kind of interact with them, just like I'm kind of interacting with you on this camera. But well, let's say you were in front of a small group. In large group, this wouldn't work because there are just too many people. But let's say there are fewer people. You could, in between each point you make, you could take a brief pause and take quick one or two questions. So that way you get some sort of a feedback from the audience based on a couple of questions that you're entertaining, whether they're getting it or not. Because the whole point is that you have to be interesting from the beginning till the end. And if you not know what zone you're in, then most likely you're in the zone that you don't want to be in. You already been lumped into the boring zone. So whether it's in personal life, whether it's a job interview, or whether it's in speech, there are only two zones. Two zones. Pick the one you want to be in and make sure you remain there. Because once you're out of that zone, you cannot get back into the zone you want to be in. I hope this makes sense. Let me know what you think. What zone do you want to be in when you're speaking? Because you got to pick it before you start giving the speech. If you don't know the zone, then they decide what zone you get put into, and that's not the zone you want to be in. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think. Thanks.